Hello friends and welcome to the next episode of the educational polling series. This time we're going to talk about the small camp and the polls you can do with it. We're going to break down the small camp, talk about the different types of polls, and then a bit about why you're going to do them. I guess a decent chunk about why you're going to do them, but also some of that was covered in the last couple of videos. So if you haven't seen those, you might want to. And then in the end, I'm going to tell you guys how to practice this because you should be able to practice, or you should be able to poll consistently, and that's going to require you to practice if you're having any trouble with it. Let's start by meeting the kobold camp. It's the worst camp. That's it. Now, we're going to talk about a little more than that. You don't need to know why it's bad. I'll probably do a funny video on that later in the future. It's just bad. Remember that. Until a patch comes out that changes this camp, it's the worst small camp. There are 6 small camps in total. You can think of them like this. Small camps and the kobolds. It's that easy. 5-1. All the camps are relatively the same, except the kobolds. They're really bad. I'm going to repeat that a lot so you guys remember, they suck. He sucks the least, though, because he's worth the most gold. So if you ever have to fight your creeps for the last hit, or the enemy 4 position, go for this guy. He's worth the most. These guys are worth the least. He has this aura. In terms of the pull, it doesn't really matter. This aura, it's passive, just gives them move speed. They can run further, so it's a little easier to do the pull, but then when they fight, they don't have move, like, they're standing still. The move speed doesn't matter. If you are against Chen or Enchantress, Doom, someone with a Helma Dominator, things like that, and you see them running really fast, and you're like, why are they so fast? If they have a Kobold 4-man, they get the benefit of this aura. So that's really all you need to know about the aura. Hill Troll Camp, they are worth the most by 1 gold, so like really not a lot. They all have piercing damage, but that shouldn't really matter because the Hill Troll Priest has these 2 abilities, Mana Aura and Heal. The Mana Aura doesn't really matter for the pull because it just doesn't really come into play. Again, if one of those Chen, Enchantress, Doom type heroes, they take this, be aware that they're going to have a lot of mana because that's what this aura, it does. This is better than Crystal Maiden's beginning levels in her aura. This guy, the reason his piercing attack shouldn't matter is because he's going to heal. He goes like this. He goes whoosh, 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 and he just heals his allies. Except he doesn't. For some reason, he stopped. I don't know why. I can't find a change log that says he should have stopped, but at some point, he stopped healing, and now he just attacks. I think it's bugged. He's supposed to heal. He's not supposed to attack. His attack is like okay because it is piercing damage. So in the end, it's kind of very similar to how he was when he was healing anyways. But to give you a quick idea in case the patch or like he's fixed, I don't know. He was supposed to heal. So this camp would do less damage, but it would survive longer, which averaged out to be relatively the same as the other camps. So funny enough, now that he attacks, it is very similar to the other camps where they have more damage but survive less because they don't get the heal. So I guess you don't have to worry about the heal so much anymore because he doesn't seem to do it very much. Hill Troll and Kobold camp, just a combination of the last camp. He's worth the most here, but besides that, it doesn't really matter. They have the piercing damage. Let's move on. Vul Assassins. This one I do want to point something out. So they're all the same. They all have piercing damage. They are all worth the same amount of gold. What I want to highlight here is this 35% health regen reduction. This is a passive, so when they hit you and they auto attack, you are affected for 10 seconds. It's a really long time. 2 damage per second, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't stack, so you don't get hit by like 3 of these. It's just 1 instance that gets refreshed with every new attack. It is a bit annoying, but it's the health regen that's the real killer. If you try to use a Tango or a Salve in this time, you will just straight up be wasting your money because you just don't have the same efficiency because it's being reduced by 35%. So be very careful of that. Be aware of it. Don't salve when you're doing this pull. You're wasting money. It lasts longer on creeps too, by the way. So it's 40 damage on creeps. That's already quite a lot. So even if like the pull finishes, they kill the camp, keep an eye on your creeps. They may fall below 50% health and you can deny them if they're still affected by this. But that's all you really need to know about that. The Ghost camp, pretty spooky, right? I'd never really looked at these guys so up close until I made this, but damn, spooky. Ghost camp, actually these are fell spirits technically, so this is the ghost. Slightly less spooky. The fell spirits I think are a little spookier. The big ghost, worth the most, has this frost attack passive, so every time it attacks, it slows attack speed and move speed. If you've ever noticed a enchantress take this creep and then it kicks your ass, this is why. It also has a good attack damage. Used to have a really good base attack time, but that got nerfed in the recent patch. So now this camp is a little weaker, but actually more in line with the other camps. It was actually one of the best camps because of the ghost, but nerfed. What I want to highlight here is this move speed slow. Especially if you're a melee hero or you're just a slow hero in general, it can throw off your pull timings. So we might try to hit like a specific timing, but then you get slowed by this and you just miss the pull. So just keep an eye on that. If you're a ranged hero, this won't matter as much. She also has piercing damage, by the way. Then there's the Harpy camp. The Harpy camp, they all have piercing damage. The big Harpy's worth the most. They are in line with the others, except for this ability, which is broken. It's one of the most broken abilities in the game of Dota 2. Zach, I've never really heard of Chain Lightning. It's because the Harpy doesn't use it. Yeah, it doesn't use the ability. The only reason the Harpy will use the ability is if a player takes control of the Harpy with a Helm on the Dominator or a hero ability, or Doom eats the Harpy and then gets this ability. Otherwise, it just never uses his ability. There's no way to make it use the ability, and that's good because otherwise it would win the game of Dota and defeat the 10 heroes. This ability does so much damage and it's such a low cooldown, it's crazy. But as a neutral, it doesn't really matter. So, all in all, they had some different averages in gold and XP. I didn't really mention them because in the end, you don't really need to know this value. The average gold is 66 and average XP is 100. That's a value you can remember. If it's easier, though, it's roughly 2 melee creeps is what the small camp is worth. That's probably easier to remember. It's a little less. Actually, it depends on the variance of the gold and XP. As the creeps scale, the melee creeps will be worth more. But as a general rule, think of it as 2 melee creeps or a little less than a melee and a range creep. Now, some other facts you might want to know. They cannot spawn the same camp twice in a row. So if you get kobolds once, you cannot get screwed and get a second kobolds. It has to be a different camp, like the Vul Assassins. Now, after you kill the Vul Assassins, you could get another kobold camp and be screwed that way, but at least you get the one useful camp in between. And then the other thing is that they have 0.5 HP per second. Now, that seems like a weird thing to highlight. It is kind of weird, but what I want you to know from that is after you do a pull and the small camp is damaged, you're not going to get to do another pull with a full health camp if you leave them alone. They heal very slowly, so once you use them and they get damaged, they're pretty much damaged until you kill them and they respawn. The exception being this Hill Troll Priest, or at least it used to be. He used to heal his teammates up. Now he doesn't, so I don't know. And then if you forgot, piercing damage is bonus damage. That's kind of why I highlighted some of the creeps. Those of you who are a bit astute might realize that the kobold camps have no one who does piercing damage, part of why they suck. What's good about the small camp? Because there is the hard camp that we could pull as well, or the big camp, large camp, whatever you want to call it, the other option. So why would we choose the small camp instead? Well, one, it's out of XP range. XP range is 1500. I'll show you a picture in a moment that should make this idea easier. But because it's far away from the lane, it's easier to do a small pull and actually deny experience from the enemy. It's harder to contest for a very similar reason because it's further from the lane, and therefore it's also safer to attempt. The objectives of pulling I'm going to pop up here just as a reminder. We covered this in the earlier videos, but we're going for lane equilibrium. We're trying to secure golden XP and deny golden XP. So especially these last 2 points, this is why the small camp is good. It's easier to secure carry solo XP and deny the enemy than the hard camp. The weakness of the small camp is that it's weaker than the big camp, and so it can be a little harder to control lane equilibrium than if you were able to use the hard camp. So let me help you visualize 1500, because I know the units don't always actually mean anything in this game. So this is roughly 1500 units around the small camp. So around each individual unit would have a circle. So for example, here's the range creep. This is about 1500. You'll notice these big circles don't make their way to the lane. So when you do a pull and things die here, if you're here by yourself, you don't get experience for your own creeps, but you get this whole camp to yourself. And in terms of your creeps, they are dying way outside the range of these guys. So they are being denied, they being the offlane. The offlane is being denied anything that dies here. And because you are way over here, I don't know why I said it so weird like that. You're over here, and Slark's over here. That means Slark is the only one in range for your team of all this experience here, so he's getting a lot to himself. So this is literally the physical distance between the heroes. Now, if you'll notice, if you played over here in the lane, safety is the tower that's down here. So it's like right here. This distance here is safety for you. When you do a pull like this, safety is like this. And so for you, it's relatively safe, like no matter what you're doing. But for the off lane, safety for them is all the way back here. So that's already scary usually. Now, if they want to contest this, they have to walk over here, and now safety is like all the way back there or all the way back here. It's further away from creeps, their allied creeps that'll help them. It's further away from the off-lane hero who could help them. So say the 4 position is the one who comes over here to contest. So certain 4 positions have a hard time contesting this pull, particularly slow and immobile position 4s. It's scary for them to come over here. Like Jakiro 4, for example. He's a very slow hero. It's scary to come over here. Now, he's okay at trading against certain matchups, and so maybe he doesn't have to run. Maybe he can fight. But when he's against a position 5 that is stronger than him, it's scary because, like, he gets bullied out, and that position 5 could chase him all the way. It takes ages to get home to safety. On the dire side, to help you remember the visualization, it looks like this. You don't really need to know the exact value. Just remember the idea that the small camp, it's hard to get XP when they're happening over here. To actually pull a camp, we're going to have to aggro it. Now, a lot of their aggro rules are similar to lane creeps, but there's a couple extra things you might want to know. So first, at night, if you're standing next to them, they don't aggro to you. When it changes to day in a moment here, they will start aggroing you when you enter 240 range in their face. You're in their personal space, so they fight you. In the day or night, if you damage them within 1800 units, they will aggro to you as well. And if you're outside of that range, they'll just ignore you. So for example, if we cast this and then blink away, I'm outside of the 1800 unit range, and so they just kind of ignore me, despite the fact that I'm doing damage to them. And now, because it's in the daytime, if I walk up to them, there we go, they'll start aggroing to me, and then they fight. And they'll chase for 5 seconds. The small camp has something called guard distance. Actually, all the creeps do. So within 400 units of their original spawn, if they stay in that area, they'll fight you forever. If they walk outside that area, then they have 5 seconds before they go home. So here you notice these 2 range creeps are still attacking me because they're within guard distance. This Kobold Foreman chased me outside of the chase distance for 5 seconds. He attacked for 5 seconds anyways, and then he went home. Now, I want them to stop attacking me, so I'm going to run away. They're going to chase. Now they've left guard distance, and then after a while, they're going to stop. You see, that guy was in mid-attack animation, and he stopped. Sometimes you'll mess up a pull, and you'll be like, why'd he just turn around? The creeps were right there. That's why. You hit your 5-second timer, and he's done. He's off the clock. He's going home. This is all you need to know for about 90% of pulls in terms of creep aggro. The next thing I'm going to tell you guys is kind of convoluted. I don't even fully understand it. I cannot replicate everything on the wiki, so I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or if it's bugged. I'm going to show you what I understand about this, and it will only be useful when you're being contested on pulls. And actually, it showed up in the coaching session yesterday, if you watched that video, which is kind of funny. So let me show you. When they return home, so that 5-second chase, and then they go back, they will not aggro to you again, even if you attack them, until at least 3 seconds have passed, supposedly, according to the wiki. That one doesn't matter as much from what I understand. And the part that's more important, I think, is that they return to guard distance, but they don't have to go back to their original spawn. Now, if you want to aggro them with your positioning, then yes, they have to return to their original spawn. But if you're going to aggro them with damage from an attack or a spell, then all you need to do is wait for them to return to guard distance, and then they'll go. So let me show you. I'm going to hit them. They're chasing me. Chasing me. 5 seconds is about to end. And now I'm attacking, and they're not doing anything. See? Now I'm going to attack here. These 2 had returned to guard distance, so they aggroed onto me. This guy had not yet gone home, and so he returned all the way back. because he hadn't got back to guard distance. Let me show you one more time. The reason you might want to know this is that, let's say the 4 position tries to contest your pull. He drags them out so you can't get it, and you're like, oh, I can't do the pull. But maybe he messed up the timing, and you can get a pull, and you can maybe stack it, one or the other. If I were to attack right now, they aren't in guard distance, so they'll ignore my attack. Then it'll take me another like second or two to walk in and then attack, and then because they've probably returned back to their original spawn, it'll take another extra second or two before they actually leave the box. So in that case, if I'm really close to the stack time or the pull time, I've probably missed it. But if I wait for them, at least one of them, because to get the pull, you only need 1 creep. If you want the stack, you have to wait for all of them to return to the box before attacking. So let's say we're trying to do a stack. Let's just pretend. Well, actually, the pull timing is now, so let's go with that. I need to wait for this Kobold Foreman to walk into guard distance before attacking one of these guys. Now, you'll notice Venge has a very short attack range, so if I were to try to attack the Kobold, I just won't. What I'm going to do is attack these guys. Even though they are not within guard distance, which ends about here, as long as he's back within guard distance, if he is within 500 units of an ally neutral who gets attacked, he'll aggro. So I'm going to unpause here, and hopefully we can hit this. There you go. You see, they didn't aggro, but he did. And now I'm going to be able to pull this out and aggro him to the camp. Pull complete. If I had attacked immediately, he would not have been in guard distance, and this pull would have failed. So this is kind of advanced. You don't usually need this unless someone is messing with you in terms of your attempts to pull. If you're just like here by yourself going for the pull timing, then all you need to know is the timing, which we'll cover in a little bit. And then you hit the camp, you walk into the lane. That's it. Let's talk about full pulls. This is a lot of times what people are thinking about when they're saying pulling. It's when you pull 4 creeps, so a whole creep wave, 3 melee, 1 ranged, into a single small camp that is probably at full health. Let's just assume it's at full health for the sake of this whole spiel here. You're going to do this at 14 to 18 seconds or 44 to 48 seconds, depending on what creep wave. So every minute there are 2 creep waves that walk by, and this is the timing for both of those. They're 30 seconds apart, so you don't have to strictly remember both times if you want to just add 30 seconds. But these are the timings. So let me show it to you visually. On the Radiant side, these are the timings for both of them. The Radiant side, if you're doing 14 seconds, that's on the earlier side. So you're going to hit the camp and walk towards the creep wave, walking in from the lane. If you're hitting at the later time, 18 seconds, you're going to go this way, in between these trees towards the camp usually, or the creeps walking by. These are the extreme times. To be honest, don't use them unless you have to. Go for like 15 to 17 seconds. If you have trouble remembering times, just go with 17 seconds. I'll explain why in a little bit. If you do those, you're just going to walk straight down. Straight line, hit it, walk right down. The reason you're going to use this middle timing instead is because it's more consistent. And if you miss a pull, you don't get a chance to do it again for 30 seconds. You see here on the next creep wave. And that 30 seconds can really impact the life of your lane, depending like why you needed to pull or not. So it's quite important that when you need to get a pull off, you get it off. And so using these middle times is a bit more consistent. The reasons you want to know these extreme times is because let's say you see the 4 position running over from the lane. If you wait for 17 seconds, they're going to stop the pull. So you want to know the earliest I can do it is 14. I'll hit this camp, run in, and hopefully the 4 position's not there to stop you. You get the pull off. The 4 position's there, but the pull's happening. So you're kind of good on that front. And then on the extreme side, maybe you're in the lane and you're like, oh, I have to pull. Is it worth even walking over? Am I going to make it? As long as you can make it by 18 seconds, it's probably worth it. And if you can't, then you should probably just do something else. So that's why you want to know the extreme sides of it. If you're a new player or in the lower MMRs, don't worry about that too much yet. Just go with the 15 to 17 seconds and be very consistent with it. On the dire side, same thing. You're just going to hit the camp and then kind of like curve into lane where the creeps walk in from this way, or meet them the way the creeps are walking this side. It'll be easiest to show you guys the results of a full pull simply by demonstrating how it works in the game. So here we are. This, coincidentally, is one of the more common mistakes as well with the full pull. So notice lane equilibrium right now is relatively even. It's pushing a little bit into the Dire, but more or less even. That means this creep wave is supposed to fight this next creep wave down here. So now let me show you the full pull. We're going to hit this. Let's do 117. We'll wait here a little bit. Notice the wave still at equilibrium. Now, some pulls can go a little differently than others. This is just generally what happens. So, I've pulled the whole wave. We come stand here. These are going to fight each other. Uh-oh. Notice it started to push into our tower because they have no creeps to fight. Now, over here, Vul Assassins are pretty good. You'll notice they killed at least one creep, and due to the targeting, the damage is split between all of these guys. I'll try to throw in a clip here, maybe, of or soon, of the same pull, same camp, but different results. And sometimes it's just how the creep aggro works. Our lane is now pushing. I could deny these two creeps, and in fact, why don't we do that? I have two creeps here, a new wave. Guys, do you remember the previous video? What does this mean? It means we have more creeps. We're going to push into the Dire. And that's just that can be what happens when you do a full pull. Now, if you do it at 117 like we did, you'll notice we're now pushing now. It might give us a chance to do another full pull now. All small camps can generally kill 1 to 2 creeps besides the kobolds. The kobolds pretty much won't kill anything. They're only good for delaying. Now, this pull is kind of all right. Let's pause real quick, because look where the lane is right now. Because our lane pushed, this existing creep wave is actually balancing out the next one. And these could probably just kill each other off. But let's go back to this pull. They're about to kill off the small camp. What's good for me is I'm getting the experience, at least from the small camp. Hopefully some gold if you're there. If you're helping out, maybe you can get a deny here. And you'll notice this time, because the lane was pushed up, it bought time for our creep wave to get back here. Now, we're actually still pushing a little bit, but if your carry was here to help balance us out a little, then you probably wouldn't have too much of an issue. For example, you kill this range creep. We do still have too many melees, but with a bit more active participation, this could be balanced. And the reason this sort of worked out, let's say it's balanced just for the sake of the example, it's because the enemy creeps did not end up under our tower because our lane was pushing when we did that full pull. So when your lane is at equilibrium, doing a full pull has a high risk of pushing your lane because the enemy creeps walk under your tower, and then your creeps do not all die from a single camp, and they return to lane, and now you're at more creeps. You're at like 6 creeps, for example, verse 4, and that pushes. What can the carry do to address this? It's a team effort. They can do a couple things. For example, when the creep wave's coming in, they balance it outside here for however long is necessary until this pull is done, and then the camp walks back, or the creeps walk back out here, and then they meet here. The downside is that they could take a lot of damage in this time, and I mean, you're doing a pull, so it could be the offlaner and the 4 position harassing your carry. They may not have a choice. They may have to go under tower. They could also try to pull the creep wave around, but it's got a very similar risk. They might get bullied along the way, and then the creep wave meets here, and that's a little awkward, but then this next creep wave walks by, and then there's creeps over here, and it gets really messy. So, full pulls are good to get the small camp killed, but you're probably only going to deny 2 creeps at most if you're not helping. If you are helping, you can probably get 2 to 3 creeps denied, depending on the camp, depending how the aggro works. 3 is a little rare. 4 is extremely rare, but if the range creep dies first, it is possible. But yeah, that's typically the results of a full pull. So we're going to move into the stacked pull. This means you probably have 2 or more camps. Technically, it could be a bit less. You could have a half, 1.5. As long as there's more than 1 camp, it's technically a stacked camp, even if it's a single creep. So you're going to have to stack at 53 to 55. Then it's the same deal. You're going to pull the entire creep wave into the camp. The timings are the same as a full pull. The pathing is the same, so we don't have to worry about that. But the results are different, as you can imagine, because otherwise I wouldn't have called it differently. Any combination of camps will kill off a full creep wave. Even the kobolds, even the shitty kobolds, they will kill off a creep wave because they just kind of tank damage, usually is what happens. And they're going to be on the weaker combinations because the kobolds suck, but they will kill off a full creep wave unless something weird happens. And not only will they kill it off, but some of them will survive. How many kind of depends on the camps and like what happens. But typically what you'll pretty much have is like one camp left. Like it might be a mix of creeps now, but it's about the strength of a single camp and maybe a little stronger usually because they did get damaged in the last pull you did. Again, depending on what happens, maybe not. Maybe they barely take damage. It can happen. So, you now have all your lane creeps killed off. The good thing about this is that there's almost no risk of pushing. It can technically happen, but essentially no risk of pushing because all your creeps died. So, your lane had no creeps enter. The enemy had 4 creeps enter. Like, no matter what your equilibrium was before, you may still be pushing, but that's because you were pushing before and not related to this pull at all. The risk of trying to do stacked pulls is that the enemy might steal your stacked camp. Usually, stealing a small camp is not worth your mana at the start of the game, because it's just a small camp, 100 experience, 66 gold. Once you stack it, certain heroes with AoE spells can now get 2 camps at once. And now it kind of becomes worth it because they kill it and they're like, oh, I can just buy a Clarity and make up my mana. And now I have more XP, I hit a higher level, and I kill this guy. And now, like, super value. So you do have to be a little careful of that. And you have to be careful that you try to pull your creep wave, they come contest it. And now is like the full effect. So now they get the creep wave, not only 1 camp, but 2 camps. And if they have an AoE spell, it's like all the same mana to them. So you do have to be a little careful of that. You don't want the enemy to steal it, but many times they won't. So it's not to be honest, I don't feel like it's a huge risk to stack the camp. But it is something you want to keep in mind, especially if you are getting crushed. Because what would be worse? You try to stack a camp to like fix the lane, and then they come steal it, and you're like, oh my god, like now we're super crushed. So be wary of that. The last type of pull is the half pull, and I think the half pull is broken. I think it's really good, especially in pub games. Probably not broken. It's not too popular yet, but not because it's bad. It's because it's new age technology. I don't think it's caught on. This is something that only in the last year have I seen anyone do. And by anyone, I mean the very highest level. Every other bracket is slow to catch on to this sort of stuff. So if you guys can learn to do this, I think you should have some easy lanes when you're able to get away with this. So, as the name implies, you pull half the creep wave. Very creative. Into the small camp. It can be the front 2 or the back 2. I recommend the back 2 because the range creep is worth the most, so might as well deny that one off. You can also grab like any combination technically. It's just going to be harder. As long as it's not the full creep wave, I would consider that a half pull. So even if you get 3, even if you get 1, let's just call it a half pull. You're just not pulling the full creep wave. The timing is 17 to 18 seconds. Kind of depends on your hero. 17, I think, is a very safe bet to go with. How do we do this? So, these are the aggro ranges of the 2 melee creeps. We're going to let them go through because melee creeps can tank the longest and they're worth less than the range creep. These are the 2 we want to pull. Green circles. Notice this is the overlap where the melee and the range creep, if you got hit or a creep walked in there, they would aggro, but not in this red circle. So it's this little pink slip right here. This is the general rule. This is what I do. At 17 seconds, I hit the camp and I walk down. On Radiant, notice I'm like in between the trees because I won't be between. Well, I'm just not in the aggro range yet, but I'm like right outside the edge. I wait here for a moment for the creeps to line up, and then I walk in. So you actually don't want to walk in at this angle. You kind of want to walk in like straight because these creeps are moving forward. But it depends like when you get there on the timing. That's why I don't want to like give you guys a hard path and timing because it will depend. Are you melee? Are you ranged? Are you affected by that slowing creep? Like what's going on? So it is a play by ear kind of thing. And that's why I like to hit it a little early and then wait here because that lets me control when I walk in. And you just have to be careful not to have like the 5-second window where the creeps just run home. But hitting at 17 will generally work out for you for this timing. And then you just walk in there. Do it as a neutral attack lands because it's a lot easier. It's way more consistent than trying to get a neutral creep to walk into this range. Because for a neutral creep to walk into this range, you have to be standing here. And if you're standing here, you're in range to get hit by the neutral creep standing here and then aggro the whole wave. So it's much easier to have an attack land on you. On the Dire, it's the same idea. Here's the melee creeps. Here's the ones we want to get. Where I'm standing is this tree is like the furthest one out, and I'm standing behind that tree. And then I wait for an attack to like come in, and I see the attack coming in, and then I step forward into this pink area, and I hopefully aggro only these back two. If you aggro 3, it's not a huge deal. If you aggro 1, also not a huge deal, depending on your goal. If you are looking to simply deny what you can, then, you know, picking up 1 isn't the worst. Picking up 3, probably going to get your camp killed unless you help out a little bit. But that may be fine, because at the end of the day, that's still like a pull that killed off 3 creeps, and that's not too bad. But keep in mind, like, what's going on. Do you need to, like, let a certain amount of creeps go through? Then that's where trying to get the right amount is, like, a skill. But I'll let you guys know, I screw it up all the time. It's probably something I need to sit down and practice again a bit. I'm a little rusty on it, to be honest. So even if you don't get it perfectly right every time, I wouldn't worry too much about it. The idea is that as long as you're not getting all 4, you just have more control of the equilibrium. And I think that's the key idea, is only pulling some of them, not all of them. What's going to happen when you do this? All the camps can kill 2 creeps, except the kobolds, of course. And it doesn't matter what 2 creeps. 2 melee, 2 range, it's fine. And they won't die. That's really good. That means you could do another half pull if you wanted, and then kill them off and deny another 2. Or you could stack them. And that gives you a lot of power going forward. Now, speaking of the kobolds, so kobolds can kill a single creep if pathing isn't messed up. So if it's a ranged creep, it's possible for the ranged creep to kill the entire camp by itself, depending on the pathing. But other times they will kill the ranged creep. If it's a melee creep, they can usually kill that one off reliably. But again, sometimes no. So, you know. When it comes to 2 melee creeps, that is possible if you're there to help out with the denying. As soon as your melee creeps fall below, start hitting them. If it's a ranged creep, like 1 ranged, 1 melee, it almost never works because the ranged creep can kill... It just doesn't work out. I don't know. The ranged creep kills them off faster than 2 melee creeps, so that typically doesn't work. So if you have a kobold camp and you want to do a half pull and you're able to stand there, you can do up to 2 melee creeps. Probably just want to do 1 or stack them or just pull the whole wave and get them killed. Why is this good? It's a very low risk of pushing the lane because you are sending 2 creeps forward and you're getting 2 creeps killed off. Those 2 creeps that go forward are going to fight 4 enemy creeps. That goes in your favor. Even if those 4 enemy creeps walk under tower and die, it doesn't matter because your entire creep wave died. And so the next 2 creep waves coming in are going to be 4 and 4, and it's going to be bounced. This also gives your carry 2 melee creeps to tank for them. And many carry players would appreciate this so they don't take too much damage. And it's just, you know... there's other things you can do if you don't have any creeps, but the carries don't always know how to do that. So give them 2 melee creeps to tank for them, and it'll just, like, make the game easier. It doesn't require any input from your carry. This is one of the good things about the half pull. You just do it, then you're like, look, buddy, you get 2 creeps, and you're like, oh, okay. And it's like, he doesn't need to do anything. Whereas the full pull, sometimes the carry had to do stuff. Now, because your creeps are split in 2 locations, and actually let me just move into the next slide so you can see this. This'll work. Let's say, imagine 2 creeps here. A ranged and a melee creep are here. 2 melee creeps are here. How does an offlaner get both sets of creeps? He can't. He can't be in range of both, which means they have to make a decision. Perhaps the 4 position will come and fight for these 2 creeps. Let's say they get here in time. So now they're splitting all the XP. They've got all of it. That's better for them than missing any 2 denies, but it's still okay for you because the 4 position is here getting 2 creeps and the offlaner's getting 2 creeps, but look where you are. You are not in range of any of their creeps, which means your carry is getting all the experience. So even though you're a bit underleveled, you're just the position 5. Who gives a shit? Your carry gonna outlevel their core, and then he's gonna kick his ass, and then you're gonna get a kill. You're gonna catch up an XP that way. And maybe this is just a losing lane and you're trying to get your carry out of here, then it's fine too, because you just want the carry to get XP so we can go jungle. So typically this is pretty good for you. Some supports do want a bit of XP in the beginning of the game, so you want to be a little bit aware of that, but it's still pretty good in general. Let's run through a couple thought exercises to kind of work through some of the philosophy behind pulling, or the potentials behind some pulling, because every game requires a little bit of difference in what you do. But let's say you have a basic scenario like this. Let's say you pull every minute. So 1 minute, the camp spawns. You pull at 117, you kill the camp off, respawns at 2 minutes, pull, repeat, all the way through. How much golden experience are you going to get? If you kill off 5 small camps, you're going to get a good amount of golden XP. You're also going to deny a decent amount of XP, assuming they just, for whatever reason, they let you pull 5 times like that. But we're not going to worry about that right now. Let's worry about just what you get out of it. Gold and experience for your team, your lane specifically, 330 gold, 500 XP. That's a lot when you add it all together. It's a good amount. What if you forget? So maybe you forget or you can't, because that's also reasonable. Sometimes it happens. But what do you miss out because you're not able to pull? Well, let's say you don't pull till 217. So we finally get our 66 gold and our 100 XP. That's nice. But someone else got it a full minute earlier than us. And maybe they used that XP to get a kill. Maybe. It respawns at 3 minutes, and then you're busy, you forget, you don't get to pull till 5 minutes. So you finally, after 5 minutes, you end up with a lot less than what the other person got. And in this situation, the guy on the left, he had this at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, whereas you're not getting it till 5 minutes and 30 seconds. 100 gold is not a massive game changer, but it's not bad. And 200 XP, that's kind of the bigger side of it, because if you hit a level sooner, you can get a kill, and that could kind of snowball the process. So that's why pulling sooner, as soon as you can be good. Not just pulling for equilibrium, but looking to deny the enemy and gain resources for yourself. Like, the sooner, I don't want to say it's better, but it can be. Because sometimes you do have to play the lane, and you do have to fight, because pulling would actually hurt you in the long run. That's why this is very much just focused on the idea of pulling in this regard. Because if you, okay, just to make that clear, if you did a bunch of pulls, but then your carry gets bullied out and killed and misses a bunch of creeps, then this extra gold is not worth it. So you kind of have to guarantee you're still getting the majority of the lane XP first, and then go back. Because in the end, this is all worth about 2.5 waves. So if you miss more than that by doing so many pulls, then that's no good. But this is just the idea that if the situation is there, and when I watch your replays, you guys very frequently have situations where you're just standing around not doing anything, and you could be doing pulls. This is what you're missing. Now, another way you can address this, because sometimes you just can't do pulls every minute. And it's honestly almost not good, because if you're always doing pulls, you're never in the lane. There's only some circumstances where you want that to be the case. But we can still get the gold by stacking. So let's say 1 minute. I don't have a chance to pull, and I'm always playing the lane, but I find time to run over and stack at 2 minutes. Well, now, even though I didn't pull yet, I have the potential to get the same amount of gold as this guy. So then I do a pull, and then I use some spells. I get it killed off. It respawns at 3 minutes. I can't stack, or I can't pull, so later I stack at 4 minutes, and then I do a pull at like 4:17, and I get this killed off a little bit, but not fully, so I stack again at 5 minutes. Now I've got the same gold and XP potential as this other case, but I only have to pull, so let's see, what do we say? We did 1 stacked pull here, we did 1 pull here, and maybe we'll do another pull here. So 3 pulls, because they were all stacked, we could pull the entire wave. We denied like 12 creeps total. In this case, you have to pull 5 times, and each time you can only deny like 2 creeps, let's say, so that's 10 denies. So stacking gives you a lot of power to determine what you want to do. You want to do a half pull? Sure. You want to do a full pull? Sure. You want to do the like stacked whole thing? Yeah. I guess that's the same, actually. Stacked and full pull is kind of the same if your camp's already stacked. But you have that option when your camp is stacked, and you don't miss any golden XP. And that way you can play the lane more, but get the same as someone who is pulling every single time. Now that idea ties into the next one. Pulling at the 17-second window, the 14 through 18-second window technically, is better than the later one, the 44 through 48 timing window. I'm just going to say 17 and 47 from here. Why? Because pulling does take time. The creeps have to fight each other. And if you pull at 17, then there is time for them to kill each other off, and the camp is dead, so it can respawn, or the camp kills the creeps, and then you can stack it. If you pull at 47, you don't have that chance, because they're fighting during the respawn/stack time, and so you just don't have it. What that means is that for the next minute, you don't have anything, whereas the 17-second case does not have this issue. So let me run this by you in like a little chart, flow chart kind of thing. So let's say it's 247 and you have to do a pull for some reason. Or maybe you just choose to do a pull and maybe you shouldn't necessarily have, but let's just say we're doing a pull at 247. What are the different scenarios we might run into? If you do a full pull, you deny 2 to 3 creeps. All right, but you might be pushing now. We said how that can be a common mistake. Maybe you're pushing. Let's say you're pushing for the sake of this example. It doesn't respawn at 3 minutes. And because you don't have a small camp, you can't do anything at any of these other times. The other 2 pull chances, you can't stack. 4 minutes it respawns. You still can't pull yet until 4:17. That means after this pull, you had a minute and a half where you can't do anything for your equilibrium. So if your full pull screwed up equilibrium, you cannot use the small pull to address it because it's dead. And that can be a huge issue. That can be a big game loser, or at least a lane loser. So in the end, what'd you get? 2 to 3 denies, let's say, and 2 small camps. 1 at the start, 1 at the end. That's okay. So what if you have to do some kind of pull at 247 still? What if we do the half pull instead? You deny 2 creeps, so that's very similar to the full pull. Maybe you're not pushing because of just how the half pull works. We described that before, so to save time, I won't go over it again here. But maybe you're likely to be pushing less. You still can't respawn at 3 minutes, but because a half pull does not kill the full small camp, you still have the option to do pulls through at 317 and 347. Now, preferably not 347, because otherwise that just puts you back in this kind of original loop where you're going to have another minute and a half, but just delayed now. So you're not going to get to pull to like 5.5. So preferably not here. But you could, if you wanted to, if you needed to. But what you could do is another half pull to get 2 more denies. Maybe that camp still survives. Maybe it dies. If it does, it just respawns. If it does survive or you don't do this pull, you stack. So what does that mean? You're now at like 2 to 4 denies. That's pretty good. Same 2 small camps. So by doing a different pull, I've gotten more denies than this other one. It does mean I had to spend more time doing pulls though, right? I had to be here once, I had to be here twice. It also means that in this single instance, in this one pull, the full pull had the chance to deny more creeps than the half pull. The half pull could only deny 2. This one could deny up to 3, maybe 4 if we were lucky, if we were there helping. And that debatably left us free to go do something else in this minute, but maybe not. This is why I say it's like very circumstantial. The last scenario. What if your camp was stacked ahead of time? You stacked it at the 2-minute mark, let's say. If you have to do a pull here, you could do a half pull if you wanted to, but you could also just pull the whole creep wave and your stacked camp will kill it, so you'll deny 4 creeps. You're definitely not pushing because you've just killed everything from your side. It won't respawn. That's fine, because your stacked camp is going to survive enough that you could do another half pull or full pull. You have the option and get 2 to 4 more denies. Heck, the camp might still be alive. You could do another pull at 347 if you wanted to. And maybe you ignore the 347, you do a stack. You have so many options in this one. And then like stack or respawn. So at the end, you have like 6 to 8 denies. Maybe even more, like we said, potentially. And now 3 small camps in total because we had it stacked from before. So you just have more options when your camp is stacked. If it's not stacked, the half pull still gives you more options than the full pull. But at the end of the day, the full pull, for one given pull, it takes the least amount of time and has more ability to affect equilibrium than the half pull. So with that all explained, this dummies guide should now start to make some sense to you. We put this up in the very first video, and I think I've put it in some other places before too. But you should be able to start to explain why this is good. Why are we pulling at 117? It's the very first chance we get to pull to start to establish our lead. And we're going to do a half pull so we can still deny 2 creeps, which is pretty much what a full pull could do. We're not going to ruin equilibrium too much. And it's going to give us the chance to stack. And everything I just said should make it clear that when you have a stacked camp, you have so much freedom in what you do. I want to keep doing half pulls. I want to full pull. I want to stack. I want to do whatever. All of it's open to you. So it's really nice to have a stacked camp. And if you don't, keep trying to get a stacked camp. It really helps. Like, it's really good. But sometimes you don't have the option to, and that can happen. And that's why pulling's tough. So some miscellaneous advice here. It's kind of what I said, but just put up in a little word thing. So we want to do 17 instead of 47, but the stacked camps, they help us out because they mitigate some of that risk of the 47 pull because you just have more creeps, so you're not worried about it not respawning because you just have a lot. Half pulls are better at denying golden XP to the enemy because you can do it a lot. But because of that, there's only so much you can do to control equilibrium with it because you do send 2 creeps to the lane. So if your lane is already at equilibrium, half pulls are really nice because it's a way to continue to deny XP without affecting the equilibrium as much, but still keep it in a very favorable place for you. Full pulls are better when you have less time and you're trying to get yourself golden XP because you're just trying to kill off that small camp. But also when you really need to change equilibrium really quickly because you have the most potential to deny a lot of creeps in that one particular wave. And if you have a kobold camp or your single camps are weakened, just try to get them killed off because they don't really help you control equilibrium, and that's a big part of why we do pulls. So if you can't, if the camp's too weak to affect equilibrium, then like that's not any use to us. So get it killed, let it respawn to something more useful, or stack it because then even though they're weak, you have a fresh camp as well. It's stacked. Now we're back to that whole idea having a ton of utility. No quiz or pop quiz this week, but you should practice this so you can get it down right. So come over here, create a lobby. It doesn't matter what side you pick. In fact, you should pick both because you'll need to practice on both sides. Then all pick, you give it a name. Make sure you enable cheats, and then don't fill the bots, empty slots with bots, because otherwise they kind of get in your way and it's a bit of a hassle. But once you've done that, go ahead, press start game. Might take a second to load. At the end, I will put up a summary of little cheat codes that you might find helpful. Pick your hero you're going to practice. Let's go ahead. We'll use Crystal Maiden. You don't really need any items, but if you want to like try cutting trees and stuff, that'll be a future video. But if you want to try around with yourself, you can. You can simply walk over here, but there's also, so first command, dash teleport, could be useful. You can also use dash item space blink to give yourself a blink dagger. And you use the commands dash WTF to have like unlimited cooldowns. Now, if you don't want to wait this time, and who would, you can use dash start game. This will start the game immediately. Uh-oh, I don't have a neutral cam. I'm going to have to wait a minute. No, you're not. Dash spawn neutrals. I copy this command. Kobolds. This is classic luck for me. And now we're going to wait. What I say the timing was, pop quiz. I guess we're going to have one 17 seconds. Let's do there. I'm going to hit this. Gonna run down here. Let's say I'm practicing half pulls. You see, because they're fast, they kind of run down here sooner. Gonna run in a little bit. Oops, I messed it up. I need some practice. But here you see, we got a range creep pull. Oh, this is a good case study, guys. Because of this, it's messed up. He's not going to, this is gonna be a disaster. Now I'm done with this pull. I wanna move on. Get out of here. This is why I pasted the command. Now we can practice the next pull in 30 seconds. I messed up last time. Let's redeem ourselves. 47, hit it. Walk down here. Let's wait a second. Walk in at the end with the attacks. Got 3 that time. Oops. That's fine. If you get 3, as long as you're not getting all 4 and you're practicing half pulls, then it's pretty good. Hey, look at that. They killed the range creep. We can hit it. I'm done with this pull. Kill it off. Move on. Make sure they leave the area. Spawn neutrals. And this way you can practice every 30 seconds, which is a lot faster. If you're not a hero like Crystal Maiden, who has a nice AoE wave clear, you can go ahead and give yourself a Dagon, and then after you do the pull, you just like kill all the creeps real quick, and then respawn them. What do we have now? Harpies. You don't want harpies, you want to practice with a different camp? Kill them off. Spawn a new one. Repeat. Kobolds, always. But yeah, this is how you practice. To make practice easier, put all the relevant information here on this slide. You can take a screenshot so it's easy to reference all at once. I'll put one in the description too if you want, so you don't even have to take a screenshot. Yeah, I think it's worth practicing. If you don't want to remember all the numbers, just go with 17. You'll notice it fits all the timings. So it's in between 14 and 18, and it's also the half pull timing, so it makes it a little easier. So if you only want to remember one number, there you go. And that's kind of it. I feel like up to a certain rank, I'm not sure where, but a lot of people don't react properly to pulls. And so it's just like a single player game you can play to win the laning stage. Like you do a bunch of half pulls, you do like stacks, you do full pulls, whatever. And then you go like kick their ass because you're a higher level. I think if you get this down, you can have a good impact every single game because it's usually available to you. Not always. I know you do get contested sometimes. But in any game where it's free, you should go for it and just take that free lane. So that's why you want to make sure you can get it down. And here you go, the practice. Thanks for watching. I know it's a bit of a long one, but I appreciate it. Have a nice day. You're awesome. Bye.